Ladies and gentlemen, dreamers and doers, seekers of purpose and fulfillment, welcome to Passion on Purpose, the podcast that sets your soul on fire and ignites the spark within you. I'm your host, Steph Hilfer, and I'm beyond thrilled you're here. Passion on Purpose features leaders, experts, and sometimes me on center stage. We put the spotlight on visionaries, entrepreneurs, leaders, experts, and everyday heroes to share their journey of self-discovery, enthusiasm, and unwavering determination. We'll explore how they use their passion and purpose to fuel their brand. Alongside our leaders, we'll provide practical tips, actionable advice, and wisdom from our experts across various fields. So if you're ready to unleash your inner fire, shake off the doubts and insecurities, and pursue a life of purpose with unbridled enthusiasm, then let's dive in. All right, guys, we are back with another episode of the Passion on Purpose podcast. I am so excited for today's leader on center stage. We have Spencer Sheinin, who is the CEO and founder of Shift Financial. And as you've heard me talk about on this show before, I am such an advocate for looking out for services that can support your business venture in non-traditional ways. And I'm not saying that Spencer does things in non-traditional ways. We're going to dive into that a little bit.
We do, but carry on.
Love it. But what I'm saying is, like, so many times we feel like the old, I need to hire a part-time or a full-time person to do X, Y, and Z for my business. It feels like that is the old school way. So it must be the tried and true way. So I probably should try it. That should be the goal to get to. Versus really, I love exploring so many of these awesome guests that I've had on the show, so many of these great services that you get you guys thinking outside of the box and into these different service offerings that exist. They exist and they're amazing. So I'm excited to talk about all of those things, but we're going to do as we always do here, Spencer, and we're going to dive in deep with my hard-hitting question. Are you ready?
Hit me.
Okay. Spencer, what is your why?
My why. So I believe entrepreneurs can change the world, and my role is to help them through their financial blind spot.
Spot on. Business leaders can change the world, and you help them through their financial blind spot.
Yeah, it took me a long time to land on that and figure out that's why I'm here, but it's clearly why I'm here. So that's I believe entrepreneurs and business leaders, I usually say entrepreneurs, but I mean both.
Yeah.
Get into the business and most of them I find have something other than making money. Like, we all want to make money. Cool. No objection to making money. But there's usually something more where if it's only making money, it's not quite enough. And there's usually something that's underneath the surface that they might not be ready to kind of lead with, or there's something that they've been trying to do, but they're stuck. And it's like, I want to really serve this purpose, but if I don't make payroll next week, it doesn't matter. I really want to put resources into this, opportunity, but if we don't ship this order, it doesn't matter. So it's really helping entrepreneurs get unstuck financially so that they can fulfill their purpose.
Yeah. And make impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious, it's such a smart, I'm biased, right? Doing what I do, but it's so noble as well to recognize that I want to touch on this impact thing. Hey, business owner, you're doing something, sure, there's some dollars and cents we need to figure out, but you're making some big impact in the world. So I'm kind of curious, what was some of the earliest business, whether it was you personally involved in or someone just through you, purchasing from them or utilizing their service, what was the first business that you experienced that you felt like, wow, they're actually just doing something great in the world, not just making money?
Yeah. First, I don't know. I don't know if I'll remember the first, but I've hit a lot of them. So I'm actually in process of writing my second book. The first one was a business book around the finance side of accounting and helping entrepreneurs get unstuck. This one is actually really around the purpose stories. So it's around entrepreneurs that had their moment where they thought they were going to lose it all. We've all had it, got through it, and are really now hit a high level of success and impact. So a couple quick examples that I really love is there's a brand called 10 Tree. It's a clothing brand. And they plant 10 trees for every piece of clothing they sell. And you never know if that's like a true thing or they're just saying it. So I
Yeah.
interviewed the founder, and it was one of the founders, I should say, very, very true. And the way they describe it, and he described to me, goes, we're actually a tree planting company that happens to be in apparel.
Yeah.
Right. And so companies that are like, that's one of a type of purpose business, it's like we're like a purpose mining business that happens to be in accounting, kind of same thing. The other one that I really love, another guy I interviewed from Guatemala, and his company's name is called Eco Filtro. And he actually took over his sister and mom's not-for-profit to a lot of struggle internally in the family and within, and made it a for-profit business. And they were giving away these filters that allowed people that didn't have access to clean water in rural Guatemala to have clean water. They were giving away about 2,000 a year. Awesome, amazing. He came in and said, I think we can do more through a for-profit business. So he went out, restructured the whole thing, and through a story that too long to tell now, and at some point you'll be able to read, even though I'm way behind in the book, has turned it into a for-profit business and has now gotten it into over 500,000 homes in rural Guatemala.
Yeah.
So that's over half of people who didn't have clean water in rural Guatemala through a for-profit business. And it's also stopping people from having to have open pit fires in their house to boil water in order to drink it. So it had like a multiplying effect. So those to me are like for-profit businesses that are really having a high impact. Those aren't ones that I work with directly. I'm happy to share one more story of somebody I've worked with where I've seen that happen as well. But I don't want to occupy all our time.
Yeah, no, I love those examples. Those are great examples. I think there's always those moments, whether it's someone we work with or someone we experience, we forget as business owners that we've actually experienced business, and that there's a lot of like, osmosis learning that we've done if we take the moment to like reflect on it.
Yeah.
Super excited for your book.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. I love that you're going to infuse more of that. So we'll have to make sure we can get some sort of like link or something to a wait list. I don't know if we got it. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Love that. So I'm curious, was that like, if we looked back into like a younger version of Spencer, a 5, 10, 15-year-old version of Spencer, like what would we like see if we peeked into a day in the life of you as a young child?
Yeah. I mean, I could go by, I was in high school. I didn't know what I was doing, like I was being your average awkward adolescent.
Nice.
I think if we fast forward a little bit, what might be a little more connected to this conversation is early in business. And I had my first business when I was 26, and I'm pretty close to double that now. So I've been in business a long time. And what I discovered early on is that pain I talked about before is I always wanted to do things that had purpose. And while we did our best with it, and it mostly manifested in trying to create a really good place to work and actually giving there's so many terrible places to work. Let's actually care about our employees. But more than that, it's like every time I wanted to do something, I got stuck because of the operations. Now, I understand the finance side, so that was never really my stuck point. But for so many entrepreneurs, it's that stuck point. So what you would have seen is me frustrated, stuck, going like, okay, well, yeah, of course I want to generate money, but like we keep having these operational issues. I needed more operational support. So, but that's where kind of I think a lot of this came from, is my own pain on not being able to actually step fully into having purpose in what I do. And it just became like, I'm just doing it to survive. And it's important. We all got to survive. We all got to pay rent or a mortgage or whatever. We all need food. But there's usually kind of something more meaningful in behind it. So it was the lack of meaning, and it took me a long time to really step into what meaning meant for me.
Well, I love too that you were thinking like beyond just what, like finding meaning for yourself. You're like, there's a lot of employees who are working with no meaning. Like there's a lot of jobs that just feel meaningless.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that that's something that you've instilled pretty strong in your work life for your team. And I'm assuming that your clients feel it as well at Shift Financial.
Yeah, one of our core values is life by design. So we really believe in working and living in alignment with who you are. And so, yeah, we do accounting, we have controllers, we have bookkeepers, and bookkeeping is not everybody's favorite role. Like, let's be honest, it's just not. So, but there are people that love bookkeeping because their profile is, I want to do it right, I want to get it in place. So we really encourage people to step into their life by design and figure out what that is. If somebody goes through a process internally and realizes that what they're doing isn't what they want to do, cool, we'll help you figure that out. We'll help you transition. We'll help you do that. We're not afraid of people who recognize that what they're doing isn't the right fit. Yeah. So it's really about empowering people. And we do our best to add some personal development and some growth in kind of our regular training, but really empowering people to have a life by design. And if things aren't working, let's talk about it. It's okay. If it's not the right fit, that's okay. We don't have to be scared about that conversation. So
I always say that I truly believe like communication could solve every world problem. Like,
yeah,
I can't imagine one that wouldn't be solved with communication. If
that's a whole different episode.
Yeah, that could be. But I just think, to your point, the reason I say that is you're like, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, as a team, as a client financial support person system, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So many times.
I was on a call even this morning with a client that is sort of buying into the business, and it just really sounds like between a group of owners, there's really different needs and understanding of things, and it's like, let's just put the elephant on the table and have a conversation, and then we'll figure out what we need to do. But if we're not going to actually have that communication like you talked about, we don't know, we're guessing, we're projecting. We make, I'm as good as anybody about making stories in my head about what somebody else is thinking. So I'm a pro at that. So let's just stop doing that, because there's so much energy goes into the unnecessary projecting of what somebody else is thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So then the other half of your why was solving people's blind spots financially. And so I kind of want to break that down a bit, because we could dive right into the financials things, but you are honing in.
I'm never going to teach somebody how to read financial statements.
Okay, love. You're also, but I love that you're pointing right out that this is a blind spot.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, how did that kind of come to be, to recognize that it truly is a blind spot for so many people who are trying to make impact in the world?
Yeah. I'm going to come back to something you said in the intro around doing things a different way, and people hire a bookkeeper or whatever. And the story I love to tell around why people get stuck is, if you think about building a house, you're going to build your dream home, right? You're going to hire a general contractor, and that's going to be your lead point of contact. You're going to deal with them. They'll hire a bunch of sub trades. There'll be plumbers, electricians, and all that kind of stuff running around the site. And if the job's big enough, a couple of laborers, they're sweeping up, they're hauling lumber, they're hauling cement, whatever they need to do. We all know that. That's very intuitive. Very similar stack exists in an accounting department, right? There's the transactional function, which is the basic stuff most of us think of as accounting. But above that is reporting and compliance. That's cash flow forecasts, budgets, reporting, all that stuff. But it's also the compliance, the setting up the chart of accounts, all these other things, the policies and procedures in the accounting department, which most accountants don't even like dealing with. But that's a piece. And then there's the strategic function, which is the CFOs, directors of finance, that type of thing. The problem is for smaller businesses, until you're 10, 15, 20, even 30 million, you can't afford somebody in all of those. So you end up hiring a bookkeeper to do your entire accounting department. That's the same thing as hiring a laborer to build your house. You would never, ever do that. But yet in business, because we don't have any other option, we'll hire a bookkeeper to run our accounting department. And we'll go to them expecting them to do analysis for us. Well, they're a bookkeeper. That's not actually part of their job. That's not what they were trained to do. No digs on bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are still necessary parts of it. No digs on labor. No pun intended. No dig on laborers about them being a part of the job site. But you would never do it, because there's skills and requirements that you need as the homeowner that they can't offer. Same thing most of the time with a bookkeeper. There's a few exceptions of these incredible bookkeepers, but not very often. And the same thing is that the sub-trades don't want to sweep up at the end of the day. And the laborers don't really want to be dealing with electric work. When you've got one person doing it all, you've just got conflict everywhere throughout the accounting department. So that's where the blind spot really comes from. So, and when I joked earlier, I'm like, well, we don't do things the same way. I don't want to teach you how to read a financial statement, right? It's like, if you handed me a set of plans for a home, I'd be like, well, there's the front door, and that looks like stairs. I don't know how to read plans properly. Maybe you do. I don't know how. But it's the same thing if I were to hand you financials. Unless you were trained. I went to school for years to learn how to work with financials. And yet accountants, we hand you a set of financials and say, here you go. Like, good luck. That's a failing strategy. So rather than doing that, it's like, how do we actually take the stories out of financials and make them in a way that's quick, simple, and intuitive for an owner or leader to understand, so they can drive profit in their business, free up some cash flow, and now be able to have the impact that they want.
Yeah. I love the analogy of the house building. It makes so much sense, because I think when we don't know something, we assume there's got to just be someone who can just do that.
Yeah.
And then we minimize, it was a different conversation I was having, but they were saying, don't tell me if you say, oh yeah, that's going to be a 24-hour job. And I'm telling you, it's gonna be a 48-hour job. You're hiring me because I know the job. So don't tell me what the job is going to consist of. But I think when we have a blind spot in an area, an entire department that should exist in your business with several nuances of roles to be filled, it is really easy to just kind of be like, oh, can I just hire a bookkeeper and they'll do it all? Yeah. And I absolutely also love that you're realizing, like, we can't just send people these once a month, exported documents from QuickBooks and expect them to feel good about where they're financially at in their business.
We're going to stay stuck.
Yeah.
That's just a recipe for staying stuck. And it's so frustrating. I mean, that's why, like, if you go to our website, it's accounting doesn't have to suck, because for most people it sucks. And that's why. Yeah.
So I love that accounting doesn't have to suck. How did you get to that?
So I'm a CPA, and when I used to drive to work, when I was articling with a company called Coopers & Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers, I think it's the largest accounting firm in the world. When I was driving into work every day, I was physically ill. I was physically nauseous driving in because I hated it so much. And so the reality is, most people think accounting sucks, but accounting sucks because of how accountants designed accounting for accountants. It really was. And there's some wonderful CFOs. And that's why I say, when you get to be a bigger business, this is less of an issue, because you can usually hire a little bit of like higher level firepower to help you with it. But if you're like a 2, 3, 4, 5, even $8 or $10 million business, you can't afford that higher level firepower. So you're sitting there. And so I hated accounting. I own an accounting firm now. People who knew me back in the day, and I've had a few other businesses along the way that were unrelated to accounting, that were bricks and mortar businesses. So when I came back to this, I was like, oh, everybody hates this. But because I'm bilingual in both entrepreneurship and accounting, there's actually a better way. It doesn't have to suck this much. Yes, you got to get the hygiene right. Yes, you got to get the entries in. Like, that's just true. Yeah. But it doesn't have to suck for the owners. Let's get people who like doing accounting, doing the accounting, and let's translate for the owners in a way, again, quick, simple, and intuitive. So that's how I came to it, is through my own pain of accounting.
That's really refreshing. Like, just be, listen, I get it that this sucks, and I do this, right? But I'm telling you, there's a different way. I absolutely,
especially for the owner.
For sure. Yeah. So give me some specifics. We talked about in the beginning, I said, I want listeners to realize there are out of the box thinking, like methods that we could be utilizing to make accounting not suck. Yeah. So outside of not making people read financial statements, tell me some of the points of difference that makes Shift Financial such a relief to these business owners making impact.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, there's a few things I would say. Is one, so I actually hate reporting that comes out of any accounting software. It's typically built by accountants for accountants. So that's where the problem that I mentioned. So out of frustration, we built our own software. It's not an accounting software. We still use like QuickBooks Online for all of our clients, but then we have an API that connects to that, plus a bunch of other systems. Nice. And so when we do our reporting, it comes doing a lot of data visualization, charts, graphs, and the art is really, there's only 3 ways you can increase the profit in your business. You can increase your sales, you can increase your gross margin, you can decrease expenses. That's it. Every strategy you have impacts 1, 2, or 3 of those levers. So we'll start by which lever, and there's a few on the balance sheet. We won't get into that now, but there's a few levers that you can pull to increase the profit. Which lever do you need to pull? Okay, you've got a gross margin problem. What's driving the gross margin problem? Is it labor? Is it materials? Is it other? Oh, it's materials. What's going on materials? So really start at the highest level, understand which lever is the problem, and then understand what the problem driving that lever problem is. What I know about most leaders, most entrepreneurs, is if you know what the problem is, you can solve it. Mm-hmm. The blind spot is, I'm getting these financials and things look gross, but there's 4 pages long and I don't really understand it. I don't know what to solve. So if we can actually take it, turn it into data visualization, which makes it easy to understand. If you're looking at a chart of expenses and it's going up, you don't need more information than that. It's like, okay, my expenses are going up. Is that okay? Right? Is the expense lever too high? Is the sales lever too low? So once we've identified the lever, it's going down and down and down to the root cause of what's driving that problem, you'll be able to solve it if you know that. And by the way, Don't worry about your expenses. You're doing a good job containing your expenses. Keep doing what you're doing. We need to focus on your labor in your install department. That's where your problem is. So it's getting focused on the key problem.
Yeah, yeah. And so we kind of dove into the assumption that people really understand, like, that this is a fractional CFO and accounting model is what I'm picking up, right?
Yeah, so we're an outsourced accounting department is the way to think about it.
Okay.
So our clients get a bookkeeper controller assigned. They're dedicated, so it's not a rotating pool. You get the same people. There's always a learning curve, so getting people up there. We don't have CFO per se, but we provide the information that a CFO typically would through the software and through the package with the data visualizations narrowing into the problems. We don't do like modeling and M&A and like that type of thing, but we do your cash flow forecast, your budgets, all the reconciliations. We close the month. We do all that stuff. All the stuff that most people think sucks, we do that. But then it's the delivery of the information in a way that's understood. So the best way to think about it, if instead of walking down the hall to somebody who's in the corner, we're a remote solution for that.
Yeah, I feel like,
and sorry, real quick, just to finish that, when you think about that house building analogy, most businesses don't, again, if you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million, you probably don't need a full-time bookkeeper, a full-time controller. You need part of each. So let us give you part of each.
Yeah, that's that key word that I use. Well, I love your saying, think of us as outside, financial department. Fractional, the term for this position is that you only need a fraction of these positions, and so that's kind of where that term comes from.
100%.
So listeners, even though that's not necessarily Spencer's lingo, it's kind of a good way to think about it. I find it helpful.
I'm totally happy with fractional.
And so the other thing I'm thinking and hearing is what I love is when I think of a CFO, and trust me, there are varying levels, but for a lot of businesses that are just, small to mid-size, even kind of on the precipice of a large, when they're looking for a CFO support, what they're really needing is what your software is solving, which is just clear understanding of where we're at.
I mean, CFOs, in fairness, go beyond that. If you're going to do mergers and acquisitions, if you're going to do financings, if you're going to do 5 or 10 year modeling, there are some higher level kind of that type of thing. But for most sort of that small, medium business, what they need is the analytics to know what to do. And most of those people think as a CFO should be telling me that. And they're right on that front. So so when I say we're not fractional CFOs, but for most $5 million businesses, we're giving them what they need from the CFO perspective. Which is really weird for marketing, but you and I will talk about that offline.
Well, and I like, though, essentially you've created a solution that you're saying you may not need a full-blown CFO, but we need to give you what they're going to tell you. And so we created a solution for that. And that is this report that we give you that isn't hard to read, that is very visual. And I'm super biased. V is for visual. So I love that you're leaning right into that. Because I mean, I'm biased. I'm a very visual person. So I just make the assumption that everyone is. And it's so much easier to read visual reports. If I can't have it fed to me by my CFO, I want it on a very visual report. I really hope I didn't lose you, Spencer.
No, I think I'm here. I just noticed my camera clicked on and off. We'll give it a sec. I don't know what's going on. There we go. I'm back.
We're human. We have tech issues. I was just like, man, I hope I didn't lose Spencer. This is way too good to lose.
Thank you.
So yes, I love that. Again, it's one more area, and I don't know the cost breakdown with Shift, but I'm just saying it's one more area when I think about a lot of firms that do assume that businesses need a full-blown CFO. Again, not knocking that at all.
No.
But recognizing that there's different needs. I love that you are really creating the solution for that. So I applaud that. That's great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I just want to kind of, listeners, we've dove into some deep stuff. I love what you're doing. I love the impact you're making and helping businesses make impact. So give me like the nitty gritty of like, what is Shift? And then what's like the easiest way to get into your world?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the best way to describe, we typically help people with one of two problems. One, I don't trust my numbers. They're late, they're wrong. Me as the owner, I'm diving into fixed reports and I don't want to do it. I'm not good at it. And I should be doing something else with my business anyway. Or two, maybe I think I'm getting good numbers, but I don't really know what to do with it or like how to pull the stories out of those numbers. So we typically help with those two types of problems. That's our outsourced accounting department with the reporting, as I mentioned. Easiest way to get a hold and to look into it, I mean, shiftfinancial.co, not .com, .co. somebody has pirated the .com and wants to charge an exorbitant amount for it. So I'm not playing
Oh,
that game.
no.
And I'm Spencer at shiftfinancial.co. So I'm more than happy if you have any questions or want to reach out, I'm happy to chat. And I kind of have my belief in terms of purpose entrepreneurs, and I'm going to assume those that are listening here are purpose entrepreneurs. I'm here to help people through their financial blind spot. Even if Shift isn't the right solution, I'm happy to point you in the right direction if I can.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I feel like we got a little bit of a teaser already of the answer of this question, but I'm still going to ask it in case you have something more up your sleeve that you want to unveil to us. But what is next for Shift Financial?
Yeah, that's actually a fairly big question. So we are, the way I describe us, we're a tech-enabled service business. So our technology is for our team to provide services to our clients. Really, the scaling of a model like that comes with all kinds of issues just in terms of finding the right people and scaling and having the support to do that. I've really been starting to lean into what is like a self-serve Shift model, where if you have a bookkeeper or a controller that's pretty good, but they're not quite getting it, how do we either make the software available or like a learning platform available, where it's like go through these, it might take you a year to go from where you are to where you need to be. Even with us, it takes about a quarter to go from onboarding to what we call smooth sailing. So if you do it yourself, it might take a year, but each month there's a module and then access to the software where you can build these types of reports. But the magic is knowing what to build into the reports as much as just having the data visualization. It looks easy when it's all put together, but knowing what to build is part of it as well. So I think what's next for Shift is I want to help more purpose entrepreneurs. And so how do we scale in a way that isn't limited by our own ability to grow? Because growing a business is very difficult, but if it's a self-serve model, that doesn't work, because we're quite high-touch, white glove service is our approach. So how do we scale and offer our services to more people in a practical way? That's what's next for us.
I was already kind of thinking, I was like, gosh, man, I know a lot of agencies and firms that would love to get, even for me, not that we're in the financial space, but some of our reporting, we lean on a lot of the systems we use and their built-in reporting.
Yeah.
And to be frank, I hate almost all of them. But the idea of picking and pulling and bringing it all together into one beautiful report that meets our standards and our, values of visual and things like that, that's a whole journey to go down. Yeah. So I was already thinking, gosh, I wonder if he, partners with other firms to support with this. So I love that.
I think we're doing enough with the numbers visualization, and we do pull from different systems. We'll go to we do have quite a few ad agencies or digital agencies as clients, and we'll go to whatever they're using, Harvest or Scoro or whatever, and pull the reports from there into our system to provide visually. That's more around labor utilization and kind of some of the metrics around accounting. Yeah. So in terms of doing things in multiple systems, oh man. Thank you, but that's probably not what's next.
Yes. Well, this is exciting. I'm so glad that we got to give the listeners just a little insight to your why, which is such a beautifully crafted why. I'll be honest, not many people come prepared in that way. So I love that you have that so deeply rooted. I love that it's working beautifully for you and your clients, and just continue to make that impact in the world, because that's what we get to do as humans, and we get to do it through business, should we choose to make that passion and purpose, really shine in our business. So thank you so much for being on the show, for coming on and sharing. Any last words?
No, just thank you. Really appreciate it. I think anyone that can be contributing to a movement of creating more purpose in business, I think is a great thing. So thank you for your contributions too.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to make sure in the show notes, we got shiftfinancial.co, not .com. Shiftfinancial.co. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. You guys can go check out Spencer. Spencer graciously offered his email address, so hit him up, ask the questions, get in his inbox, see if this is the right fit for you.
And I'll even just real quickly say the first 3 people that do from here, I'll do a demo of your numbers in the format we talked about today for you at no cost. First 3 that reach out.
Okay, first 3, reach out to Spencer at shiftfinancial.co. Make sure you mention the show. You guys know the name, Passion on Purpose. And that's a beautiful gift. Thank you for doing that. All right, guys, until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Passion on Purpose podcast. I truly hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. So if you did, please rate, review, and share. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, whether a leader or an expert, please go to getvim.com/podcast and you will find our application page, or reach out to me directly and I can give you more information.